Good evening to each one of you present today. I am more grateful to welcome you all to the sixth day of this International Virtual Faculty Development Program on Craft of the Research and Publication. Now, I introduce the chief guest for the first session. It gives me an immense pleasure to introduce the today's resource person for the first session, Dr. Juan Eric Tando. Originally, he belongs to the Philippines, but he is now the citizen of Alberta, Canada country. His designations are DTM, author, and coach. His background is public speaking, confidence building, communication, and presentation, as well as expert in giving talks about feedback and evaluations. Now, I gratefully invite Dr. Juan Eric Tando to give his presentation. Sir, the session is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Indo, for that introduction. And I would like to greet everyone. Good evening in India and other part of Asia, as well as good morning from Alberta, Canada. Yes, it's morning here. So it's actually 6:30 in the morning just in Alberta. I would like to emphasize though, in Canada, we have 4 or 5 time zones. So just in the whole Canada, we have different times. So here in my province, we are 6:30 in the morning. All right. Our topic for today is about my research and about my book. So I did an extensive research on this feedback and evaluation. Very simple, but if you will going to understand and analyze this topic, feedback is always around us. Okay, moving forward, I would like to say thank you to Dr. Basudeva for inviting me here. Thank you very much. And of course, I would like to congratulate the organizers of this 5-day event. The effort, sacrifices, the time, we appreciate that. And I appreciate that by heart. And also, thank you everyone for coming. I believe this is an hour presentation. At the end of my slides presentation, I welcome questions. The more, the better. The more, the merrier. So listen carefully, and then you can ask question at the very end. Okay, I'm going to share the slides in here. Okay. Okay. There you go. Can anybody see my slides here? Dr. Basudeva, can you see my slides? Can someone say yes? Can anybody see my slides, right?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yes, sir, visible, sir. It's visible.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. Now, let's dive into this topic, the art of giving and receiving feedback. And I'm going to teach each of you, every one of you here present, what is really meant by feedback and how it is important in our daily life as a student, as educator, maybe as a friend, as a worker, or a citizen of your respective country. Moving on, a short introduction on my side. I have a confidently speaking coaching program. So I coach people, I mentor people all over the world. I teach them on public speaking, on how to build confidence, and also I teach them on other aspect if they need help. I teach people how to write book like this. Okay, that's a little introduction of myself. This is my book, Say It Loud and Say It Proud, and at one chapter of the feedback I incorporated in this because I studied very well what is feedback. Because feedback, as you all know, there's a good feedback and there's a constructive feedback. The constructive feedback is the one that hurt people most. Like it hurts us, right? We are just only human. And if we receive negative feedback, we don't like it. But in this presentation, we would like you to understand that feedback is very significant in our daily life. Before we move on, I would like to lay down two objectives in this session. Number one objective, at the end of this presentation, you will get to know more why feedback is important in your workplace, in your career, in your life. And for those single here, this is also very important in your love life. Okay? To avoid quarrels, misunderstanding. That's an important. Number two, what are the important steps you need to learn from feedback? So there are some steps, very basic steps, but if you will follow it carefully, consistently, then it will make your life easier. And that's what we want. We want our life easy, smooth, no problem, no stress, right? Now, I just want to ask these two questions. Why are we reluctant to give evaluations? And another question here is, why do people don't like to receive feedback? So that's two questions that I would like to ask you while listening and participating in this session. Okay, two questions that I would like to inculcate in your mind. Why are we reluctant to give evaluations? And why do people don't like to receive feedback, particularly the constructive one? Okay. Now, if I'm asked each one of you here, what is meant by feedback, probably I will get different definition. Probably I will get different opinion. Most likely I will get different answers. What is feedback all about? But for the basis of this presentation, I would like to give this definition of feedback. Okay, so feedback is about information about reactions to a product, a person, a performance of a task, which is used as a basis for improvement. So remember the root words, basis for improvement. Okay, so in this presentation, I'm not talking about the people who give criticisms just because they just want to criticize. This session is about giving improvement. So if you're a teacher, a professor of your university, your main goal is to give improvement to your student. So I saw that we have different doctors here. So that will be your motivation to give improvement. Now, if you're a reader of a book, or if you're a professor and you conducted a research, expect a feedback of your research. Maybe your colleague, your fellow professors, your student will give feedback to your research, and you should be open-minded to accept those feedback. Again, what is feedback again? It is a reaction to a product. What is that product? Probably, as I mentioned, your research. That is your product, right? Or probably if you publish a book, that is your product. Or probably you patented or you invented a certain invention. That is your product. And of course, the moment that you have innovations, inventions, or any product that you introduce to the world, expect that there is always a feedback. Even the geniuses, the founder of iPhone, founder of any big companies, they receive feedback from the consumers, right? That is important. You, even as a student of your university, you get feedback from your professors. You also get feedback from your neighbors, friends. You also receive feedback from your mother alone. That is the reason why people don't like feedback. Because psychology says all we wanted is only a good feedback and we don't want bad feedback. Okay? Now, the point here is if you are ready to accept positive feedback, you should also be ready to accept negative feedback. Now, what is a person's performance of a task? Probably your performance in school, probably your performance as a speaker. So you receive feedback. Okay, so that is what we meant by feedback in this presentation. Now, if you can see these slides, feedback can also mean a view, a critics, a judgments, a opinion, a satisfaction. Another definition or a popular word for feedback is evaluations, right? So many of you are probably aware of the evaluation form, right? Teachers get evaluation forms. I remember in the old days. We get evaluation from our students, and also students get evaluation form from their teacher. Also in the big companies, when I work in a customer industry, we give evaluations to our staff, our worker. So again, feedback can be mean a view, a critics, the judgment, an opinion, a satisfaction. These two words actually, the critics and judgment, people don't like that. They don't like critics, they don't like judgment. But they want positive review. They want positive opinion. Why is that? Right? So this is the objective of this session is if you can accept good feedback, then you should also be willing to receive constructive or negative feedback. I prefer to use the word constructive feedback, okay? Because I'm so a positive person and I don't like to dwell on negativity. So in this presentation, we will use the word constructive feedback because the basis of evaluation actually is to give improvement to everyone. Okay, moving on. I would like to share this quote by Henry Cloud, an American author and speaker, and he mentioned one time, the natural response to evaluation is to feel judged. We have to mature to a place where we respond to it with gratitude and love feedback. Accept feedback with open arms and open mind. So you should accept that criticism when your classmate criticize you. Oh, I don't like your voice. You accept it and then move on and improve your voice. Oh, I don't like your handwriting. You accept it. Don't get hurt. Don't put it in your mind. Rather, convert that negativity to positivity and improve. So when someone said, oh, I don't like your dress. I don't like your handwriting. I don't like your speech. Your response should be positive and ask him, how can I improve? Can you help me? If he or she can't help you, then her only motive is just to criticize. And those people are not your people. Okay? That's why our mother is always angry at us. Hey, what are you doing? They're always there to give feedback. They're always angry just because they want you to improve. Okay? So Harry Cloud said, your natural response to evaluation is to feel judged. Every time that they will say negative things to you, you feel judged. But again, we're just human, right? That's why I'm here to help you don't feel judged. So be mature enough to respond it with gratitude. So when they said, I don't like your hair, oh, thank you. Oh, I'll fix it. That is positive attitude. Don't go to the corner and cry. It will not help you. It will just ruin your day. Okay? Because when someone said, I like your hair, I like your dress, our number one thing to say is, oh, thank you. And we smile, right? How about if they will say the opposite, right? Because in psychology says, people only want to accept good and positive feedback. Okay, moving on. You probably knows this person, one of my favorite actor. But the quote that is I want to share it with you. You learn nothing from life if you think you're right all the time. Okay? So we also have flaws, right? We're not perfect. That is one thing that I want to share to you too as well, right? Okay, moving on. Now, our topic for today, which is the evaluation or feedback. I would like to share this. If you will see the number 4 here, evaluation, feedback and evaluation actually is one element of public speaking. Okay. If there's a speaker, of course, there's an audience. And the audience will be the one to give evaluation. And that evaluation can be a verbal, they can tell it to you, they will say it to you, or they will keep it by themselves. But the most important here, when you go out there in the stage, in the world, in your classroom, anywhere, when you present your topic, when you present your speech, or you will show your project or your product, don't worry about evaluation. Just accept it. Right? Because evaluation is the feedback of champion. Always remember that. If you want to be a champion, you are ready to receive feedback. That's why they're in the basketball team or cricket team, right? There's a coach, there's a player. Why? Because the coach is the one giving feedback, coaching, giving evaluation. And you as a player should learn from that coaching given by your coach. So you see, feedback, evaluation is always around us, no matter what. But the most important here, at the end of the day, you should learn from feedback and evaluation. Okay, so I also want to discuss these elements of public speaking for the benefit of everyone here, particularly those who are always speaking in front of their student, to their audience. Okay, so there are 7 elements of public speaking. Number 1, the speaker. Then the speaker right now is me. Number 2 is the message. What is your message? Number 3 is the audience. Of course, your audience. Right now, you're the audience. And of course, the evaluation, right? There's always evaluation. And that is our main topic for today. Next one is the channel. What is the channel that you use? Like right now, we are using this medium so-called Google Meet. Okay? We use Zoom. We use Microsoft Teams. Right now, we're using Google Meet. So this is the channel that we are using right now. And of course, the situation. What is our situation right now? We are online. I'm in Canada. You are probably in India or other part of the world. We are in virtual situation. Now, next one is interference. What is meant by interference? Probably the signal, or probably low internet connection. That is the interference, or the noise. Right now, I don't see or hear any noise. It's so quiet. So I do hope that everyone can still hear me. By the way, can everyone still hear me? Our doctor, Basudeva, can you hear me? Please say, because I can't. I'm not sure if that is interference, right? Maybe you can't hear me. So that is an. But again, going back to number
Sir,
4.
you are very much audible. You are very much audible, sir.
Beautiful. I like. Thank you. So now going back to number 4, our main topic, which is evaluation, right? So again, evaluation is one of the elements of public speaking. So for those public speaker here, for those who want to speak in front of people, for those students who are doing a research in their articles, in their uh, thesis, eventually you will speak about it. Always be ready with this number 4, which is the evaluation. Okay. You will be going to evaluate as a speaker. Okay. And by the way, I have a whole chapter of this study in my book that I publish. So this is the book. So I'm going to read a part of this one page so that everyone can understand why I conducted this study. Okay, so I leave my slide for a moment and read a part of my book. So in kindergarten, when we start to go to school, there is a part of the day reserved for show and tell. I remember that one. It is there that 5-year-old children stand in front of their classmates and show an item they brought in from home and then talk about it. So I remember that one when I was still young. We will bring something and show it in front of our classmates. For many of us, kindergarten is our first foray into public speaking, and we are not aware of that. We're still young kid, but we are already speaking in front. Even your grade 1, your teacher will ask you to come in front and show something. So that we are already into public speaking at a young age, actually. For some of us, it is our last, maybe that will be your first and last. In that environment, with our innocence on the line, we are not critic openly. Why? Because we are still children, right? We were not being criticized. With of course, an occasional exception, we are allowed to be ourselves and share about something we treasure. So remember your childhood. When your teacher come in front, what did you bring from home? Probably you will show the anything that you got from home. You're not being criticized, but you are allowed to share something that you treasure. Now, as we mature, we are given the opportunity to present in more dynamic situations. So probably when you're high school or in your college, a talk in your workplace about health, probably in safety, or a presentation in someone else's workplace about a product we offer. Right? So that's what I'm talking about in the first part of my. So as you speak, right, that will the time that you will get evaluation. And in those situations, for most of experiencing gifted, we experience nervousness. So we are very scared. We worry, right? Yet we want to give our best and share the information we have so that we can make our mark on the world. And when we're done in that work, the kind is covered in this one, you get evaluations, right? So very important. So I have a whole chapter here, right? So we prepare and practice just like our presentation in our school. A teacher will also prepare his lesson plan. Yet we might miss the importance of actively seeking critique. Okay. Writers, author are familiar with the process being drafted in manuscript and then passing it to the reader. So you get evaluation. Okay, so An effective evaluation from your audience. Will Rogers, an American entertainer, once said, "You never get a second chance to make a first impression." That's true. And this, in my slide, if you can read it as a speaker, how the speaker looks, they will evaluate you in how you look. How you sound. Are you audible? Is your voice clear? Those are the two things that you will get evaluation. Lastly, as a speaker, you will get your evaluation in your materials. How do you organize your materials? How do you organize your slides? Is it visible? Is the color enough? Is it too much? That's why in the slides, I'll give you a technique. When you're doing presentation, you should have a minimal numbers of letters or words in your slides. People can't read it, particularly if they are into just their cell phone. Okay, so just yeah. So have you seen those speakers and educators and their slides is like a novel, like this book? You can't read it. So as a presenter, you need to know how to organize your material and as much as possible, very few letters and words in your slides presentation. Right? Have you seen those speaker, they're reading their slides to you? That is public reading. That is not public speaking. Okay, so the technique here is just give few words, the bullet points, and then you speak about it. So just a side job. So that is a part of my simple evaluations to people who give too much is in their PPT or in their PowerPoint slides. Okay, let's discuss how the speaker looks. Okay, why you should dress well. You need to dress well, just like in this picture, because that will give you confidence. Of course, when you're speaking to a group of students, you should wear the appropriate dress, right? So if you are in a business conference, you should also wear the appropriate or formal dress. So that's how they will evaluate you as a speaker, how you look. Maybe wear a coat, a black tie, right? So how you dress, you are already getting feedback from your audience when you are a speaker. So always be mindful of your dress, right? I love Indian dresses, particularly the ladies. I like their colors. Wow, I'm so impressive. So how you dress is very, very important. Okay, moving on. If you can see the slides here, she's nervous, right? He has no confidence. He worried too much. So how you sound is very important when you do your presentation, when you do your research and then show it and tell it to your audience. Even if that is the most intelligent research you made, if you can't deliver it very well with confidence, you have a low voice, you're nervous, then that research will not be understood. So again, as a researcher, and then you speak about your research, you are being evaluated, you're being given a feedback on how you sound. That why it's important, if possible, speak slowly, particularly if you are making a point. Okay, so how are you as a speaker or presenter in your class? Are you confident or nervous? Do you have a loud or you have a low voice? Do you know that having a low voice indicates that you are shy? That's true. You have a low voice, it seems that you're not confident. Right? Okay. Lastly, Organization. What is it meant by organization? How the speaker or the researcher organize his or her materials. That is very important. Okay. I'll show you a basic technique on organizing a speech. There are only three basic components of a speech. Even if that is 1 hour or 10 minutes speech. Number one here is, of course, the opening. The opening or introduction of your speech. And then the body, we call it the body of the message or the middle part of your speech or your presentation. Let's say if you're going to present your research. And lastly, conclusion. If you know that three basic components of presentation or speech, then you're good to go, right? Introduction, the body, of course, is the most important part, and then your conclusion. So that is the organization that I'm talking all about here. Okay. Now let's go to constructive feedback versus negative feedback. Now, as part of our session here, I would like to use the word constructive feedback. Okay. You give constructive evaluation so that your employee, your student, your friend will improve. But what's one of the important things here when you give a feedback is it's not what you say, but how you say it. So there's two difference in there. The word what and the word how. We'll give you an example. Instead of saying, I don't like your dress, probably you will say in a nice word. Right? So it's very important. It's how you say it. That is one important aspect in giving feedback. That's the reason why in my first question, why are we reluctant to give feedback? It's because we don't want to hurt someone's feeling. But if you know how you say it, then you're in the right direction. Next one, how to give feedback. Okay, so number one is the attention. So when you give a feedback, you should be observant and give your full attention. The number two method is the sandwich method. And then the last one is my CARE. I created this acronym CARE, and we have something to tell about that. So attention, number one, give your full attention. You cannot give a feedback without listening attentively. So when we say attention, listen attentively. Number two is sandwich method. Can someone from the audience heard about sandwich method? If no, the better. Don't be shy. Anyone? Or maybe can we put it in the chat? Have you heard about the sandwich method? No? Yes? No? Have you heard about this sandwich method before? I'll show it. Attention is about listening actively. I mentioned that. Taking the time to analyze, then think of a positive solutions to perform better. So you need an attention to give a good evaluation. This is what we call the feedback sandwich. Did you hear about the feedback sandwich before? Anybody? No? I'm assuming no one because there's no reply.
No,
So no? Okay.
the
Not yet, right?
the message is not activated, so we cannot write anything there. The chat box is not activated,
Okay.
so we can't write anything there. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. Okay. Can you see the slide about the feedback sandwich? Can somebody see what is in that? What is in the picture? Can you tell me what is in the picture? Can someone tell what is the picture all about? Anyone?
Yes, let me try.
Yeah.
Yes, can I try?
Yeah,
I'm Ibrahim
absolutely.
from Ghana.
Thank you,
Yes.
Ibrahim.
What I can see is yes. What I can see is I'm guessing it's a bread that has a ketchup with leaves.
Yes,
Yeah.
you're right. You're right. So that is actually the basic picture of a sandwich or a bread with a lettuce, ketchup, and probably the burger. Now, this is what we call the feedback sandwich. And this is very important when you give evaluation to your student, to your worker or staff. So very important, okay? So there are three parts in the feedback sandwich. Number one is the positive feedback. Number two, the middle part is a negative feedback or the constructive feedback. And lastly, more positive feedback. Okay, I'll show you this one. Okay, I'm not making you hungry. I know it's almost dinner in your country. This is an example of the bread or bun. Okay, the first part, which is the top portion, imagine this as the positive feedback. And then the middle part, imagine this as your constructive feedback. And the last part, which is the bottom part or the heel, imagine this as more positive feedback. That is the concept of the feedback sandwich. Okay, I'll walk you through how to use this method. There you go. So this is the illustration of the feedback sandwich, okay? The first part, this one, if you can see me, hopefully I'm visible too. Something positive to warm up the discussion. So in psychology, people always want to hear positive first. Remember that. That's the reason why we are reluctant to give feedback, because we want them to listen. We want them not to have hard feelings. And then transition to the middle part of the sandwich. The illustration here, it says, the feedback you actually wanted to give. So what are your observations? What are your recommendations? And then lastly, to soften the real feedback, and the real feedback here is the middle part, the feedback that you actually wanted to give, something else positive. So the feedback sandwich method is like this. Positive feedback, constructive or something that you want him to improve, and lastly, another positive feedback. So if you have a question, later on we have a question and answer portion, and you can ask if you have something to ask about this illustration. But feedback sandwich is the one that we use particularly in my organization. In my organization, by the way, is Toastmasters International. So Toastmasters International is the leading and the biggest organization for public speaker and leader and communicator in the world. So this is actually what we do, because we always evaluate the speech of our colleague. So we give positive evaluation, and then the middle part, which is the feedback that you actually wanted to give, and then later on, something else positive to soften the real feedback. So that is the sandwich method. Okay, positive, negative, positive. Just imagine the sandwich. Okay, so I hope that's clear, but we have an answering portion later on. Another part of a method of evaluation is the CARE, or it stands for compliment. A for address, R for resolve, and E for encourage. In other words, be a coach and you should not be a critic. A coach is someone who care, who compliment. You give what he did best, right? And then you address the issue that he needs to improve, and then resolve it, and encourage him to learn from that feedback. So let's say I'll give you a compliment. Hey, I like how you conducted the research today. So that's a compliment. Address. However, you did not give enough example in your research. That is an address. And then resolve. Maybe can we work on this together, and I want you to give more examples on that research. Probably give more your where did you get your data, or where did you get your study? Can we do this next week? In 1 week time, you will be able to give me more example. That is resolved. So you give time, a specific time, right? Just for example, and then encourage. You need to be a coach. You need, okay, as a teacher, you need to be a coach, not a critic. Okay, because your number one motives here why you give feedback is to improve someone else. Now, I showed you the 3 basic method on how to give feedback. The number 1 is your attention. Number 2 is the feedback sandwich, which is very, very critical in your evaluation. Other big companies, they think feedback sandwich is not effective. But again, it's how you say it, not what you say. Remember that. And lastly is the care. C-A-R-E. Okay? Compliment, you address, you resolve, and you encourage. Now, let's move on. So we still have 20 minutes in our presentation because I also time my presentation. How to receive feedback, right? How do you receive a feedback? Now, this is very important. I mentioned to you earlier, if you want to be a champion, if you want to be the best in your field, you have to receive feedback. Number 1, practice, practice, practice. Okay, how do you practice? Maybe you can get a feedback from your audience. Number 2, you have a mentor or you have a coach. Okay, let's say you will present your thesis or your research to a panel of judges, right? Of course, you need to practice, right? So the first thing to do when you want to give a good feedback is practice. Okay? You don't practice to be good, actually. Okay? Just you practice all the time. Even if you're already good in that presentation, you still need to practice over and over again. That's why when you observe the athletes, they always practice. Practice is already part of their life. A basketball player, a cricket player always practice every day if possible. Right? So same thing with your research, in your writing, in your speaking, anything. You need to practice all the time. Next one, set yourself up for success. How do you set yourself up for success? You need to plan. Planning is very important. If you plan to fail, then you fail to plan. Very simple, right? And of course, prepare your writings, prepare your research. And then practice your speech or anything that you wanna show to the world. Practice. And then when you set yourself up for success, when you present your talk to your audience, there's a big chance that you will succeed because you set yourself up for success. Okay? So plan and prepare. And I mentioned earlier, how do they evaluate you? The way you look, the way you speak, and the way you organize your materials. If you know those 3, how you look, how you speak, and how you organize your material, then you are setting yourself up for success. Next one. This is the most important part on receiving feedback. You need to learn from the feedback. Okay? If they said that your writing is not sufficient, improve more. When you are ready to accept feedback, that's because you are a coachable person. You listen. You are a teachable student. You listen to your professors and then apply what you learn from them. Right? So that is the art of receiving feedback actually is you learn from the feedback. Okay? So you learn from your feedback. Now, if you want to win, you have to be willing to be judged by others. Remember that. Feedback is the breakfast of champion, and a real winner is someone who is willing to be judged by others. Okay? So that is very important. Okay? While it's difficult to receive a constructive feedback, it's important to take it. Trust me, it's difficult. We are only human. They criticize our writings, our research. They criticize how we look, how we dress. But take it if you want to improve. Okay? Don't just sit in the corner and just cry. Stand up, show up, dress up. I prefer someone who is honest enough to give me a constructive feedback rather than someone who remains silent. I work in a fast food industry for 20 years, and if the customer did not say anything, I'm much worried because there's no feedback. But if the customer said, your coffee is cold, your sandwich is not fresh, as a manager, I have more time to improve rather than not getting any feedback. So imagine, if a customer of yours, if you have a business someday, I know maybe some of you here are businessmen or entrepreneur. If a customer did not say anything about your product, then you think everything is okay. Wrong. So learn from the feedback. That's why I prefer to get feedback, no matter how bad it is, rather than a silence. Because silence means nothing. They don't want to tell you something that you can improve on. So again, if you want to win, you have to be willing to be judged by others. So again, constructive feedback is great for business, speaking or otherwise. Okay, think about a restaurant dining experience where a customer who is not happy with their meal or service, they're not happy with your service, but says nothing and never returns. That is bad for business. For those who want to be in business someday or already into a business. Staying silent helps no one to improve. That's true. So I'm reading a part of my book to all of you actually, just to give a coherent and clear approach to this presentation. Okay. I know a chef who always comes out of the kitchen to ask about the food. So this is a chef and the owner of the restaurant here in my community. And he always asks, how's the food? How it tasted? Actually, he's from India. So she's from India. So yeah, so he has a restaurant here in our city. And I like him very much because aside from the good food that he offers to our community, he always go out and ask for feedback. That is the kind of an inspiration that we should take from, right? So a person who asks, did I do well? How can I improve? So that is all I get. So some people will automatically approach you too, actually, to give compliment or give a bit of critic or something to improve on. So let's say, oh, I like your topic, but I think I can understand some part of your presentation. So can you please elaborate? That is a feedback, right? So be willing to learn from the feedback. Lastly, the important part on how to receive feedback. Have you heard about this Q-tip? Q-tip stands for quit taking it personally. Don't take it personally, any feedback. Be it good or bad, particularly the bad feedback, don't take it personally. Okay? If you take it personally, then it's hard to move on. It's difficult to move on. And of course, the most important here is, of course, always learn from feedback. Q-tip. Okay, so hopefully in this almost an hour presentation, Q-tip, if you can always remember this in your everyday life, I should not take it personally. Okay. So if someone give you a criticism, ask, how can I improve? But don't take it personally. Okay. So those are the basic things, but important in our daily life. In this presentation, how to give and how to receive feedback or evaluation, how to receive feedback in your research, in your speech, in your presentation, in your product. So let's summarize. How to give, of course, your attention. Give your full attention. Don't go into your cell phone while you can't give a good feedback if you can listen. And then use the sandwich method. I've shown an illustration and I've shown also a sandwich, a bread or a bun. If you have a question on that one, I reserve a question and answer portion from the audience. And of course, the care. So you need to care about your student, to their research, help them improve. This is our main motivation, is to inspire, motivate by giving good evaluation so that everyone will improve. Okay? So forget the negativity. Forget that I'm only the best and I will not help him. Give your evaluation because your main purpose is to give information that will help him to improve in his or her work, whatever it is. Now, to summarize what is how to receive feedback, of course, don't take it personally. That's the most important. Learn from the feedback and then set yourself up for success by practice, prepare, and plan. So that is the 3 P's actually. Practice, you prepare, you plan. Or you want to do it, plan, prepare, practice. As long as that 3P or 3 P's is there. Okay? That is my presentation on how to receive and accept feedback on no matter what you do. Not just speaking, not just presenting, anything that you do in your daily life. Okay. So this presentation is from my book, Say It Loud, Say It Proud, and that is under evaluation chapter. The research that I made, because the reason why I'm speaking about feedback, because I've seen a lot of employee leaving their job, their dream job, it's because they receive negative feedback and they don't know how to accept it. And for those managers, executives of big companies, on how to give a right evaluation. That's the reason why I made the effort to write a chapter of this book and put it into my book. I made the research, I made the presentation about evaluations in Canada. Now, if you have a question, we have almost 8 minutes. If there's a question, I'm glad to answer any questions. So any question, please?
Yes,
So-
I have some couple of questions to ask you.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, my name is Ibrahim Haruna. I'm from Ghana. I'm a medical practitioner. Mr. Von Eric, I must say, very good presentation. I have really learned a lot from you. in terms of your book that you even wrote, which I will get some later on. So thank you very much for your enlightful presentation. My first question is, looking at your last slide on Q tip, where you said the Q is quit talking it personally, which is where you said the personally is very, very important. Good. This is a scenario. You are a CEO of a company. How can you fine tune an employee who can go with the Q tip? Because all of us are different. Maybe you have about 20 employees. All of us are different from different backgrounds. Our upbringing is different. There are people who take criticisms very personal. And you set an example that you have encountered a lot of people who have quit their job because of unconstructive criticisms. So how do you fine tune as a manager, and from your perspective, how do you fine tune a person who can go with a Q-tip?
Very nice question, Ibrahim.
Maybe,
Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right.
Go ahead.
Please,
Okay.
did you get my question?
To... Yes, yes.
Yes. So
yes.
after that, I'll ask another one. So
yeah, okay, another one.
Yeah, but you can answer this one so that we go.
Absolutely. Thank you for that question, Ibrahim. You're right. Everyone is different. Each one of us is unique. We have our own personality. My approach before, when I was a manager, when I was the restaurant, the head manager of one of the business that I'm managing, I do the giving the constructive criticism not in front of the public. I talk to them personally, one-on-one. That's how I do. You don't have to give particularly your constructive criticism or negative criticism in front of other people. My other tip, when I talk to someone personally, I should have a witness. Maybe my assistant, or maybe the someone also friend of that person I'm talking to. Always. So talk in your office private to give that feedback, how that employee will improve later on. But make sure you also have a witness if possible. That's how I deal with, because every people are different. You're right. And I certainly agree with that. We should have a different approach to each and everyone in dealing with our employees. So let's say if you have a 10 to 20 employees, that is 10 to 20 different personalities. But the best approach here, one by one, talk to them in your office, and if possible, if you have a witness. Why do you have a witness? Your witness is someone who will be there to be not biased. Someone who will hear what you say, so that if that person, the employee, will complain later on, at least you have a witness. Because and always have a written form. Like, I remember when we gave an evaluation on our employee, let's say 6 months evaluation one, we have a set of questionnaires. We have a set of anything that we observe, and then let that employee sign acknowledging it. Just to keep you on the safe side. Same true with a teacher or professor, student. Like, if possible, don't reprimand them in front of your students, other students. So that is our motivation, is to help them improve. But of course, you have to secure and make yourself safe too. So I understand your question very well. How are you going? First is to think of yourself first. You should not be putting yourself in a situation that later on you will regret. So have a witness, or maybe 2 or 3 of you giving that feedback. So I hope I give justice to your question. So let me know. But that's what I do.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm basing it on my experience. Yeah.
Exactly. It's well explained. Thank you. You made mention in your
Thank you.
presentation about
I
first
believe
impression.
Ibrahim, you still have another question, right?
Yes, yes. I have another
First
question.
impression. Yeah,
Yes,
sure.
you in
Go
your
ahead,
presentation
please.
you made mention of first impression, and with your experience, you stress, you re-echoed how a person should look, which is very, very, very important and key in
Yeah.
everything. How do you craft all of take all of us as naive as we are? We are very naive, novice about how to craft our first impression. What can you tell us? How do we craft our first impression? Thank you.
Wow. Wow. You really have a good questions, Ibrahim. They said that you can tell a person by his questions alone. Great guy. How to give a very good impression? Of course, I always be myself. So I always want to say this too. Just be yourself. But of course, when you say best yourself, you still try to improve, right? First impression, of course, they will see you as physical. So how do you carry yourself? How you stand up? You will not give a good impression if you're talking to someone and you're not having a good eye contact, right? Remember, believe me, if you don't have that eye contact, eye to eye contact, then you're not giving a good impression. So eye contact is very important. Number two is how you present yourself, how you talk. Do you talk nicely? Do you talk positively? So that is giving you a good impression. Okay. Of course, the most important here is be humble. Just be yourself. Just be humble. If you don't know one thing, accept it. Let's say they ask you a question, I still don't know how to answer you in that question, but I will certainly get back to you. That is humbleness. You're humble. So in other words, just be yourself, eliminating that being overconfident. You should be confident, but not overconfident. That's two different things. Confidence is how you carry yourself. You are very much aware of yourself. Okay? Right? You know that you can do it, but you are not overconfident. We call it here in North America cocky. C-O-C-K-Y. Cocky. You're like boastful. You're not humble. But just be yourself. That's how I deal. Eye contact, firm handshake, and nice words, pleasant words coming out from your mouth. That will give you a good impression. Okay, thank you very much, Ibrahim, for those questions. Any more questions before we wrap up?
Yes, another question. My third
Sure.
question is assuming you are an employer, and I know that every employer and every company's aim is improve, or at what point in time as a company or as an employer conduct performance appraisal in order to improve employee?
Yes, different companies have their different methods on giving employee appraisal. In the company that I worked before when I was the general manager, we give a 6 months employee appraisal after 6 months and then another 6 months. So that means in 1 year we give 2 appraisal, or we call it wage review. For the first 6 months, we give them a review on how they did well, what they need to maintain, and what they need to improve on. So let's say you're not really good on greeting the customer, or probably you are always delay in your deadline on your, or probably you forgot to do this thing. So that is what we did. And then later on, after 6 months, if they improve on that particular feedback or appraisal or evaluations, we give an increase, salary increase. in their hourly wages. So that's how we conduct. So it's up to you in your company. You can have a per 6 months and then give what they need to improve on, including their behavior, their attitude, including their absences, tardiness. If let's say they're always late, they're always absent, for the first 6 months, give them that appraisal. And then the next 6 months, check if they improve. If they did not improve, of course, there will be a less increase in their salary. So you can do twice a year. That's what I do when I was the general manager of one of the leading fast food restaurant that I manage here in Canada and in other country. Okay, moving
Okay.
on, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. The next question.
Yes.
Assuming all of us on the platform are your students as you are teaching us, and we want to be public speakers in the future. With your experience in public speaking, and as a public speaker and as an author, what are the 5 core qualities that every public speaker must possess in ascending order? And
Okay.
what has been your secret up to now? Thank you.
Okay, so you asked me for 5. This is in only order. Of course,
Yeah.
number 1 is this is an open secret actually. When you want to be a public speaker, a confident communicator, and presenter, number 1 is, of course, you prepare yourself. How do you prepare yourself? You read a lot. Read different topics. You should be passionate in reading. As a speaker and author, I'm passionate in reading a lot since childhood. Now, if you are not passionate in reading, we can always start anytime. There's no late, right? What is important is we start doing it. So read a lot to prepare yourself. Number 2, of course, is this one. Have that inner confidence and always remember that your audience want you to succeed. The reason why many speakers or many people don't want to be in a public speaking because they are afraid and scared of the people. And again, that's why we have this evaluation session today, because public speaking, one element is evaluation, and be ready to take any feedback, positive or negative. That's the reason why people don't want to go into public speaking, because they're thinking, oh, they will criticize me. They will say something about me, right? That's number 2. Number 3, of course, is, aside from preparing yourself, is always listen to your mentor. So get a mentor. So if you're in a community or in a city that there's a speaker that you admire, approach him. Ask questions. They will help you. Okay? So you can also read different authors and different speakers. Learn from them. That's number 3. Number 4, and this is, I always say, what is your purpose? Why do you want to be an expert in a certain position, let's say public speaking? Why do you want to be a chef? Why do you want to be a police? Why do you want to be a soldier? Why do you want to be a teacher? Anything in the world. You can be anything in the world. You can be anything you want. But what is your purpose? My purpose is to help, to inspire, motivate people. That's my purpose. That's why I wrote a book. I speak in the schools and universities in my community. I even organize youth leadership program. I teach public speaking and confidence building to youth 18 years old and below, because I want them to prepare when they grow up, when become an adult, because I always believe the youth are the future of our generation. So I teach public speaking, communication, 18 years old and below, and I give it free for them here in my city. It's free. I I coordinate with the town government, city government, and that's what I do. Because I always, what is your purpose in life? Why do you want to be a speaker? So important is your purpose and you have a vision, right? And lastly, okay? Lastly, pray that you will succeed in your endeavor. Always pray. Whatever religious belief what you have, praying is the most important aspect in our life. Before we sleep and when we wake up in the morning. So those are my 5. Important of those is of course my purpose, my vision. Thank you. Thank you very much for that question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I have gotten everything I said. Prepare yourself. 2, have inner confidence. 3, get a mentor. 4, what's your purpose? And 5, pray to succeed. Good. My last question.
Thank
In
you.
all that you've said, you see that you
Sure.
you prepared to come and give us the presentation. This is my last question. You prepared to come and give us the presentation. I can see you're a very experienced man, very experienced public speaker. What are the pointers that you consider in planning for every topic that you want to give? What are the components of your planning? The pointers that you consider when you are planning to give a speech to your audience? That's the last question. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the pointers here is always be an expert to a particular subject. Focus on one subject. Right now, I'm focusing on how to give and receive feedback. Focus, by the way, stands for, right? Okay. Follow one course until successful. That is focus. F, follow. O, one. C, course. COURSE. U, until successful. So I focus on one thing. That is my number one objective, is focus on one thing. And then be expert on that one. Conduct a research. Right? So focus on one thing. That is my main. So choose a topic that you're passionate about and then later on. Okay.